Hey, what's up everybody, it's Jonathan, and today I want to talk to you guys about the LG V20 versus the LG V10 and whether or not you should pick up the V20 over the V10. Now first off, to understand the V20, you need to understand what the V series is and what it has to offer. For years, LG's G series has led the way in terms of their flagship, dating all the way back to the LG G1. Fast forward to present time, and now you have two flagship offerings that may seem similar in specs, but are completely different monsters in terms of purpose. Last year, LG surprised us with the V10, a phone that was aimed at people who conserve a lot of media and just want more out of their phone. The V10 offered a bright quad HD IPS display, a secondary ticker for notifications and quick toggles, things like that, a 32-bit DAC, and full manual controls in the camera app, not just for photo, but for video. The V10 also offered an extremely unique spin on how smartphones should be designed. While not being the lightest device, it was without a doubt one of the most solid devices on the market, and it still is. So I guess in summary, the V series just stands for power, and it really started off things with a bang. Now we have the V20, an extremely similar yet held back successor at what I feel is still one of the greatest phones on the market to date. Let me start by saying that the model I have is a pre-release variant, and I do have some issues that you guys will not have, and LG did promise me an actual production model soon, but just keep that in mind as you are watching this video. Let's start with build quality, which is pretty much my biggest issue with this phone. The V20 is not a poorly built phone, so don't misunderstand me. When I first saw and now held this phone, I couldn't help but feel let down by LG for practically just enlarging the G5, and then adding a secondary ticker and throwing a V stamp on the back. The V20 is nearly a split image of the G5, even down to the small push button located on the side. Although instead of carrying over the modularity aspect from the G5, the V20 actually has a backplate that pops off like a hinged door. This is definitely a welcome feature and something I have enjoyed because it does offer a removable battery still and micro SD card expansion. The V20, despite being thinner than the V10, is slightly taller and it has a boxier shape. The weight has also been cut down by roughly 20 grams, but I don't feel it fits in the hand as good due to the V10's nice curvature. The V20 does look amazing though, since I was given the chance to try both the darker gray and the silver model, and I have to say the silver is really nice looking and definitely the one for me. As far as the stainless steel on the V10, I definitely miss it and I find it much better than the aluminum finish on the V20. Like the LG G5, the volume up and down buttons are now moved to the side of the phone, while the back side still houses a circular fingerprint scanner, which also doubles as the home button. The fingerprint scanner is definitely an improvement and has amazing accuracy and speed even during the initial setup process. The button as a whole feels more solid than the one found on the V10 and has less wiggle to it, so I guess durability, it should last longer. The bottom port locations are similar outside of the mic being moved from the left to the right side and the obvious removal of the micro USB port, which is now a USB Type-C port, and it does feature fast charging technology, well, faster charging technology than the one found on the V10. On top of that, we have an IR blaster still on the top with another microphone in identical placements. The display comes in at the same 5.7-inch size, however, it does have improvements on colors, brightness, sharpness, contrast, and saturation. One thing I noticed nearly right away is just how much warmer the V10's whites are versus the V20. It's incredibly easy to see when the two are side by side. Another drastic difference is with the 360p ticker display. The V10's black background looks kind of washed out when viewed at an angle versus the V20. Also, color shifting on the V20 is nearly non-existent. When looking at the color palette on the display tester app that I use, the V20 produces a wider color gamut versus the V10 and even the G5. Banding, contrast, and saturation tests all check out to be extremely good, and from what I'm seeing, LG has definitely a major win here when it comes to the display. Powering this phone is the Snapdragon 820 with 4GB of RAM and a 3200 mAh battery. Last year, it had the Snapdragon 808, 4GB of RAM, and a 3000 mAh battery, so everything is up except the RAM. However, when you look at the benchmark test, there is a huge difference in performance, and I'm getting nearly double the score on the V20 versus the V10 on the Antutu 3D benchmark test. In terms of this everyday use, the V20 is definitely snappier and it can definitely power the most graphic intense games better than the V10, but I really didn't have a problem out of my V10, so for me the difference was very minimal despite the spec increase and the benchmarks. Now the V10 already had an amazing 32-bit DAC, but the V20 offers a quad DAC, so you could just imagine the audio coming out of this phone. It's absolutely breathtaking, crystal clear, and just produces amazing sound. Looking at the software, the V20 is running Android N and it runs great. However, what's not so great is the launcher. To be honest, I actually prefer the launcher found on the V10 just because of the whole removal of the app drawer. This is one of the things that I felt held back the LG G5 significantly, but you can always fix it by downloading a third-party launcher like Nova. Navigating through the settings has also been changed slightly from the V10, but it's identical to the G5, so if you're familiar with that phone, you'll be just fine. For me, I get a bit disorganized and I don't like all the clutter, and I find that LG's menu system could definitely use a little more simplification. One big change is with the cameras. On the V10, you will notice two cameras on the front with offerings of a super wide angle and then just a tighter field of view. The V20 switched this and placed those options on the backside while retaining a single 5-megapixel camera on the front that can be digitally operated in the same fashion as the V10. However, it does have a slight impact on quality, but you probably won't notice too much of a difference. The backside houses a 16 megapixel camera on the V10 versus the dual 16 megapixel cameras found on the V20. You'll also find optical image stabilization on both of these. However, the V20 has been significantly improved for video, and you don't get as much as that wobble jello effect found on other LG phones. You also get improved optics and glass and image processing, offering a much better image overall. Inside the camera app, you do have a few features on the V20 that are not on the V10, like the ability to switch between the two cameras on the backside, and also focus peaking. Focus peaking is really dope. You can nail focus doing it manually at any given point using focus peaking on the V20, and I don't know, I'm just blown away. The V20 is an incredible phone, and it definitely has a lot to offer, and it could be the best Android device of the year. So far, I have to admit, outside of the build and LG's skin, I'm super impressed with this phone, and I'll continue using it to bring you my full review. But to answer the question, should you get the V20 or the V10? Well, it comes down to the size of your wallet. If you can afford the V20, it's a stellar upgrade from the V10 without a doubt, and it's definitely more future-proof. But with that being said, if you feel that the V20 is not right for you, you can pick up the V10 for around $300 to $400 used right now, and at that price, it's really hard to pass up. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, do be sure to like it, subscribe, go ahead and follow me on all my social media platforms, hit up the description so you can check out my website and subscribe to that newsletter, and of course, I will talk to you guys in the next video. Be easy.